let's do a call to order.
Chairperson Ferguson,
Here.
Member Schutte, Member Mayhorn, Member Wells, Member Duke,
Here.
Member Chavez.
Here.
A quorum is present.
Okay, thank you. Public comment. Do we have any public on the line today?
There are no callers on the line at this time.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to approval for the September 13th, 2022 minutes.
And hopefully you all got the late material. I want to thank Lisa Schutte for pointing that out, that I accidentally attached the July meetings instead of the September ones.
Yeah, I think they came yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did everyone see those? Any comments, questions, concerns?
I move to approve the minutes of September 13th, 2022.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I think we're good there. And then next one is adoption of today's agenda. Any questions, comments, or concerns on the agenda for today?
No changes.
And no changes? Okay.
I move to adopt the agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. That quick, we're on to number 6. 6A is election of the chair, vice chair for the I committee for this calendar year, 2023. I've been doing this for 6 years and just looking for maybe somebody else to take the reins. So I don't know if we have anybody that's interested.
I have a recommendation. No, I'm sorry, the green pepper cannot be the chair.
Do you have a recommendation?
No, I thought
Oh.
you were going to make a recommendation.
Oh. um, Bonnie, would you be interested in chairing this committee?
Not especially, but we'll do it if worse comes to worse. I would throw my support behind you for chair, and if I have to be vice chair, if you want to continue being chair for the time that you want to be here,
I don't
would
mind continuing chair till we,
Okay.
I mentioned Sherry had got other, with my business and my consulting practice and stuff like that, I'm just getting to the point where I'm too busy, so I'm looking to exit as soon as we find, the replacements. So
in that light, I could support you for chair and Lisa for vice chair. And I'll do it if nobody else wants to, but it's not something I'm
And I'm
lobbying
super
for.
comfortable with that. I also, would that be a problem? And then once Stephen steps down, then I would automatically go to chair as vice chair.
That would be
correct?
fine.
And then
and
we
we can
could have
elect
an
the new
election
vice
or
chair.
an election, a nomination for vice chair.
That
At
would be
which
fine.
point,
Sure.
hey, Bonnie, you're on the hook. Laura, you're in the background. Or you're next.
I told them we try not to put new members in the chair position. We don't want to scare them away.
And by the way, I went to chair after one meeting, so next meeting you'll probably be teed up.
Well, thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Do we need to formally vote on that or anything, or just? It's
We
good?
probably should do an action. Yeah.
I can make a motion if
Yeah,
you'd like.
please make a motion.
I move to elect Stephen Ferguson as chair and Lisa Schutte, and I hope I pronounced your name.
Schutte.
Schutte as vice chair.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. All right. Item 6B is about the review of the utility billing process, findings and recommendations. Sherry and Bailey.
Yes. So I'm going to actually turn it over to Audrey Donovan, who is the senior manager at Bailey, in charge of the audit. She should be on WebEx.
Yeah, she's here. Looks like. Hey, Audrey.
Hi, everyone.
Good
Thank
afternoon.
you, Sherry.
Absolutely.
Good afternoon. Can you all hear me okay?
We can. Thank you.
Okay, great. Yay. I was having problems on my end. So thank you, Chair Ferguson, and thank you, Audit Committee members. I appreciate you having us here today to walk you through the utility billing report. This was an audit that was selected through our risk assessment process to be undertaken as based on the Tyler Munis system. It was one of the processes that we have not looked at that's part of that new upgrade to the ERP system for the city. So I want to quickly walk through this, and then I will turn it over to Kathy to walk through the 8 findings and recommendations. I just want to quickly go through the objective and the scope of this engagement. The objective was to assess the current state of the operational efficiency and effectiveness of the utility billing system as it relates to the Tyler Munis, that it being new. So the new utility billing system. And the activities that we looked at were billing, pricing structure, refunds, discounts, adjustments, and customer outreach, dealing with billings. Additionally, we were tasked with identifying opportunities for improving the utility billing controls and identifying any recommendations for addressing control gaps or ineffective control design or operation. And lastly, with our objective, we were tasked with determining whether improvements planned by management are sufficient to address the issues where applicable. The scope of our engagement was for the audit time frame of August 1st, 2021 through the assessment completion date, which was September 30th, 2022. We actually kicked off the engagement the first week of August 8th to be specific, and finalized the engagement in December. I want to thank the organization, the utility billing division, as well as the Public Works Department. This had to be one of the better coordinated, better communication with the utility billing department, with Karen, very responsive with our requests for information. So just really want to thank her for her help and her support in this engagement. I haven't really honestly seen anything quite like this on most internal audits. So I want to thank you for that, Karen. And I'll go ahead and turn it over to Kathy, who will walk us through the briefing. We had 8 findings and associated recommendation, of which the department, Public Works and the division, as well as Treasury, all agreed with the findings. And we had some quite lengthy and specific recommendations that are included in the report, or responses to our recommendations, which we won't get into. We will just mention that they're in agreement and they do have corrective action plan that we concur with. So Kathy?
Thanks, Audrey. This is Kathy Villamar. First, I'd like to echo Audrey's gratitude to the team. Want to express our gratitude to the Utility Billing Division as well as the Treasurer's Office, who were very easy to work with. They were very timely in providing us information and support that we asked for in working through these findings that we noted. And we just wanted to thank them for their support throughout the engagement. We noted a total of 8 findings in the audit report, and management agreed with all the findings and recommendations. With that, I'll get right into the briefing of the 8 findings that were noted, starting with finding number 1, which is related to Tyler Munis system and the ongoing issues that the Utility Billing Division continue to have. Issues such as not being able to attach supporting documentation into the system for historical record of customer accounts. Additionally, customers are not able to see their tier level water usage on their monthly bill. And lastly, the system is not consistently sending out customers' billing emails. Recommendation is for the division to continue to track these occurrences and work with Tyler Munis to resolve the ongoing issues. Moving on to finding number 2, we noted that billing adjustments exceeding $2,000 did not have the necessary approval by the Public Works Director. The director was aware of these adjustments. However, there was no formal evidence of the approval. This increases the risk of unauthorized adjustments and potential loss of revenue to the city. We recommend follow-up be performed to verify that the approval workflow for adjustments greater than $2,000 have the proper approval documented in Munis. And then finding number 3, we noted customer accounts with multiple billing adjustments. Various reason codes were used for billing adjustments that we noted were inconsistent and could have multiple interpretations. As such, we recommend the division establish and document a billing adjustment policy and a procedure that limits the number of billing adjustments made on a customer's account on a given time frame. Additionally, the city should require that the customer provide proof that the leak has been resolved. And lastly, we recommend that the department define the use of adjustment codes. Moving on to finding number 4, we noted several instances of no-read errors on the customer accounts appearing in the system on a monthly basis. This results in inefficiency when meter technicians repeatedly go to the same location to investigate this error. So we recommend that the city perform a cost-benefit analysis to determine whether it's more cost-beneficial to implement an advanced metering infrastructure system versus having the meter technicians going to the customer locations on multiple occasions each month. And this takes us to our 5th finding, which is customers with zero consumption. We identified customers with no water consumption with monthly base rate charges on their accounts for maintaining the water meters, which could be costing the city more than the revenue received. We recommend that the Utility Billing Division implement policies and procedures to monitor and review active accounts with zero consumption. Additionally, we recommend that the division perform a cost-benefit analysis to determine the cost of 3 things. First, maintaining the meters. Second, the meter technician's time in validating meters. And third, utility billing specialist time in reviewing zero consumption reports, and then compare those costs to the base customer charges received for zero consumption accounts. And then moving on to finding number 6, we noted several accounts which are not being billed for at least one utility service, and that a reconciliation of customer activity for services provided by the city, which will ensure all revenue owed to the city has been recognized, has not occurred. As such, we recommend that the city perform a reconciliation of customer activities and perform further investigation as to why these specific customers are not set up to be billed for water or sewer or stormwater services. Additionally, the city should evaluate the ability to implement and leverage Geographic Information System or GIS mapping to assist with identifying utility services that are available at specific locations where specific services are not applicable. Then we move on to finding number 7, waste of water. Finding number 7 relates to an instance of waste of water violation. In the report, we noted a violation by a large multinational corporation where they were charged a total of $150 in penalties and a $25 reconnection fee. So we recommend that the city perform benchmarking and consider adopting higher penalty amounts for waste of water. Lastly, finding number 8 is related to customer billing. We noted opportunities exist for the city to reduce costs by increasing the number of electronic billings and decreasing the number of printed billings sent out to the customers. We recommend that the city encourage customers to opt out of paper bills. Additionally, the Utility Billing Division should confirm the billing method for customers that are receiving both print and electronic billing. And lastly, The utility billing division, along with the treasurer's office, should perform a cost-benefit analysis on processing customer payments via credit card or checks or ACH. That was the last finding. As mentioned before, management is in agreement with all the findings and recommendations. Their responses are in the report, and I now open this briefing up for any questions or comments.
Didn't go live. Thank you, Kathy. Anybody have any questions, comments, concerns?
Um, Thank you. First of all, wonderful report. Just reading through it and all the detail and the different layers and the complications of even something, you think about how do we make billing more efficient and yet being mindful of the customer and how they typically pay bills or feel most comfortable paying bills. I just really appreciated reading about this, and also a huge kudo to staff because their replies were quite involved and very, they did a great job explaining the process and why the difficulty. So really, that was my comment. So thanks.
Okay,
Okay.
thanks, Lisa. Hey, question on the first finding. There was a comment about the system email functionality is not working properly. Was it sending some and not others electronically, or just wasn't sending any?
The first one is correct. It was sending some and not others, and it differs from month to month. So it's very inconsistent, and that's what the utility billing division is continuing to test.
This system that we're using is like an outside system. We didn't build this internally. It's
No, it's it's a module of the ERP system, so it's through Tyler Munis.
okay. Yeah, you think that would have come up some. I mean, it's just odd that.
Yeah, I mean their systems are good, but they are very, very flexible. So they do so many things that it's hard to narrow down exactly what you want it to do. So I think it's just a matter of working through it with Tyler Munis and figuring out what's going on.
Like the settings and controls?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that seems like it seems like it would be an easy fix, but I always oversimplify stuff, and then IT guys set me straight, so. Yeah, Lisa, go ahead.
Actually, sorry, I forgot to ask this one. Finding number 5 on, so the identifying canceled permits after they went out and approved or did it's not right in front of me. What's the word I'm looking for?
Zero water consumption?
The what?
The zero water consumption finding?
Unable, so let me turn back to that. You know what? I just answered my question. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Okay, sorry.
No worries.
And one thing I found surprising was the number one reason that we're giving billing adjustments to customers is for leaks. And it seems like if the leak is after the meter, the customer, I mean, ultimately they have to be responsible for it. It's their, from the meter in, it's their responsibility. I don't understand why we would give adjustments to people for leaks that they don't fix, or you know, that they haven't fixed, basically.
Yeah, I can ask Darren and get back to you. I have a feeling it has to do with the age of the pipe and where the leak occurred. So, or why the leak occurred. Like if they were digging, obviously it was their fault, they would pay for it. But, you know, if something happened with city where we were draining it out and it was a really old pipe and the pipe busted because we were flushing it out, we might pay for that. We might let that go.
Okay. I mean, it's substantial, 120 grand.
Yeah,
That's a lot of water.
it is.
So,
But I can verify that with Darren and email everybody.
I'm just curious, Kathy and Audrey, from other public utilities that you've audited, you know, how do these findings stack up? Are they pretty typical findings, or is this like, and is there anything unusual?
Audit Committee Chair Ferguson, I'll go ahead and take this question. Yes, we do have a number of clients that we are performing utility billing for, and in fact, they also utilize Tyler Munis, and having some of the same situations with the billing and looking to an outside party, a third party entity to that works with Tyler's applications and systems to help with that process. Also looking at the billing adjustments and noting that a lot of these organizations, municipalities that we work with are in similar regions geographically, such as Reno, where water is a scarce resource. And they are very stringent on the time frame in which they will allow a customer to have an adjustment. It's probably close to once every 3 years, and they're very strict on that policy. Also with regards to violations, such as the corporation that had a $150 fine on top of paying the water, the cost of the water that they used. Other municipalities are charging a lot more in that penalty fee and fine, and trying to recognize what the root cause is to why the organization is not fixing the leak and not fixing it timely. And with that regard, they look at that as egregious and will penalize them a lot more. So there's some revenue areas here that we can look at being more cost effective and efficient, even with the AMI, the automated meter. I forget what the I is, the AMI process, where the meter readers don't have to go out to the addresses multiple times a month. That we're seeing that is been a very cost benefit to the municipality as well as the customers. So yes, to answer your question, we're seeing very similar findings, issues, but they're being a lot more strict on the outcome.
Okay, makes sense. Thanks. Yeah, was it the print and electronic bill? I actually, you know, I'm a resident. I put my account on auto bill in 2007 when I moved here, and I called them and I'm like, hey, you don't need to mail me an envelope because I will never use it because I'm on auto pay. And they said, well, that's the way it is. And I said, well, 18 years later, here it is. I still get envelope every month and don't really need it. And actually, if they went to electronic bill, I'd be like happy because literally all I do is look at it and make sure it's not crazy. And
Yeah,
it gets paid.
I think they are looking into a way to split out the people that get electronic bills versus the people that get that still send in a payment. But right now, there's no way to break them out. So they print out all the bills at once and mail them out. They don't know how they are paying them. So it's too hard to separate them now, but there might be a way in the future to separate those.
Did that change with this new system though, or no?
No,
No. Okay, the billing system's still
not
the
yet,
same.
as far as I'm aware. There
Okay.
might be a way to code them or something, but I'm not yet, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, and I was surprised that like, you know, wastewater fine for, you know, a Fortune 500 company, $150, they could probably care less.
That's the question is, are they just paying the fee because they don't want to deal with the water leak?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So things to look at. So this is a great audit. I really think you guys did a great job. So I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions? Okay, go ahead, Bonnie.
Yeah, again, I want to say that job well done. I think this is a great audit. Having been in utility billing since Hector was a pup, a lot of the same issues are there. Some have already been noted, but the adjustments and when the adjustment occurs, been through those fights. It's a hard fight, but you know the hard line is if after the meter, no exception. So again, that's a policy issue, not really part of the audit, but always that's an issue. The other issue is with the billing and the electronic, and I really encourage us to pursue all of the recommendations in here. Consumers today versus when I was in it 100 years ago, they expect the credit card to not have a fee. You know, that's just kind of an expectation. So again, the arguments have been there forever, and there's good arguments on both sides, but maybe we can come to something that way. I did have a little bit of concern that some parts of the municipality don't charge the fee, like the courts. I read something about that in here. Consistency on the fee charge would also be an issue that I think needs to be considered. Municipality-wide policy on that. But again, in general, I thought it was a great report. I concur with all the findings and hope we continue to work on improvements.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Bonnie. Laura, you got some comments?
Yes,
I'll
I
talk-
sure do. I have a
Oh.
comment on number 8. It sounds like we're all in agreement of the electronic statement versus, the paper. Not only is it, the time, the personnel, the paper that's wasted, the stamps, envelopes, et cetera. And the other comment that I have is that it's really nice to see that there's recommendations and not just findings.
And we'll do what we can with that electronic billing. Carson City does have a large older population, and they like their bills and they pay with checks and they don't want to deal with computers. And my father is one of them. Love him dearly, but he is one of them. We might not be able to go 100% electronic build, but I think the opportunity is there to encourage more use. And I'll talk to the treasurer about credit card fees. I know that the courts kind of have their own way of functioning. They are actually separate from the city, even though they're included in our financials. So, but I will talk to the treasurer.
Just to add to that, though, and I think you bring up a really good point, and it's public perception when people get an envelope and they think about the cost to the city, and when they say you don't need to send this. And granted, it is difficult to, okay, who gets envelopes, who gets paper bills and envelopes, but to the person who says, you don't need to mail this to me, please save the money, there lies the reason why we need to figure out a way to streamline and to bill two different ways of billing, perhaps. Those who solely paper bill, those who solely it's automatic.
I'm hoping there's a way in Munis to do that, to code the account. But the problem is the time it would take to break out those that don't get an envelope and those that do. We'd almost need a whole nother FTE, and then we're in the same spot of wasting money. So
Correct. Right.
So we'll definitely look, and if we can use the system, we'll figure out how to use the system.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else on this one?
Nope. Oh, you do have to accept the report.
Yeah,
though.
we have to do a motion to accept the audit to forward on to the Board of Supervisors. Can I get a motion?
I move to approve the report and direct staff to work on the recommendations as discussed and to continue with detailed audit processes. Do I need to include that?
You don't need to include that.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
That's strictly on there in case
Oh.
you didn't do, in case the auditors didn't do enough and we had to reword it and have them do more work. Yeah, that's what that's there for.
Okay, 6C is discussion and possible action regarding the monitoring, review, and closure of the internal audit findings, recommendations from the audit findings tracking report. Sherry?
Yes, thank you. So I do have some recommended closures today. On the community development audit, we're recommending closing number 2, number 5, and number 7. We closed number 8 last time. It's in green. Hopefully you got a color copy. So Hope is here if you have any questions on those closures. She said she would have them done by January of 23, and by golly, she did. So she would have 4 findings left to review.
Two, 5, 7, and then does anyone have
So
any-
2 is just making sure the fees are available on the website,
Right.
which they've done.
Does anyone have any questions on those?
I had a question on, this is the finding 5 that I had alluded to earlier, and I was just in the wrong area.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. So on the finding, it said there are many instances where the final inspection was performed, but the permit was canceled. An auditor was unable to determine the cause for such a late cancellation. And then in the status, and speaking with Hope and Community Development, we were not able to identify canceled permits where inspections occurred. And so I was just wondering where that was found, or if it had been resolved. But findings were there, but in the effort to mitigate and correct the problem, there was no information to be found.
I Hope, did you work with the auditors? Okay.
Thanks.
So on this one, I think this was a two-parter. The reinspection fee was easy. So I did talk to as you remember, we contract out for our building division to Charles Abbott Associates. So I did speak to the Charles Abbott team and explain that we did need to have a procedure for capturing the reinspection fee, and that is occurring. In terms of the canceled permits, I spoke to the building official, and we actually now have a new building official than the building official who was in place at the time the audit was done. But I did speak to the building official who was in place at the time the audit was done, and I said, well, this doesn't make sense to me. Why would we cancel a permit if it was clearly an active permit and we had conducted inspections? And he said, no, you're right, we wouldn't do that. And he said he had looked through the system and couldn't find examples where that had occurred. So we did not reach back out to the auditors to ask for the specific examples where that had occurred. I felt like because we had agreement that that was not the right process and that we would not do that, and we had that agreement that we were in the right place.
Okay, thank you. Other questions on the community development finding closures? Hearing none, so I think we're good there. Sherry?
So we're okay to close 2, 5, and 7?
Yes.
Okay. All right, the IT vulnerability update. I did speak with Frank, and he has closed all of them except number 1. So this is, we did this IT vulnerability audit, I believe, in 2020. And so it's been lingering for quite some time. We had it updated just last year. And he's put a lot of mitigation controls and policies in place to close a lot of these findings. There are still a few old systems out there that we can't update. There's no update available. We can't, we're looking for systems to possibly, move to. However, it's a cost issue, and so over time, we're going to have to work those costs into our budget to get a new system. And those few systems do still have some vulnerabilities. He is, like we talked about, moving those into kind of a padded room. So if somebody does get into them, it won't cause any damage. And that's why number 1 is still open. And why it's probably going to be open for a long time. So I don't know if we want to just go ahead and say close it for now, and maybe next year we can do another IT vulnerability audit to, 1, follow up and make sure all these were done, and 2, see if there any other vulnerabilities have arisen.
Yeah, I mean, we know that we're aware of the issue. It's just a matter of cost, right? So leaving it on the audit tracker for another 3 years or whatever, it doesn't seem reasonable, but
Right, that's what I was thinking.
yeah. Does anybody else have any concerns on that? Okay. I think that makes sense. Pull it off. Make sure we got it, earmarked for, addressing it with the budgets.
Okay.
And then, of course, we talked about revisiting this IT stuff fairly frequently. So it
Every
should be
couple of years.
it'll still be on in the forefront of issues that we need to address.
Okay.
Okay.
The body worn cameras.
Oh,
Worked with the sheriff's department on this one, and they have 2 of the 4 that are ready to be closed. They do have a policy in place for each of these 2 findings for number 2 and number 4.
Anybody have any comments, concerns on 2 and 4?
My only comment on the status, and I haven't had a chance yet to reach out, indicates that after every shift or as soon as practical. And so I'm just interested in knowing the definition of practical. How they got
I
to
believe
that.
it's 24-hour period.
Okay,
So it would be
perfect.
like the next morning if they were, leaving their shift and they were closer to home than they were work and they didn't want to drive all the way back to the office. They could do it the next
Perfect.
morning.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other comments? I think we're good on those 2, Sherry. So 2 and
Okay.
4.
All right. And utility billing, I did add it on here, but obviously they just presented the report. So usually we don't see a lot of findings recommended for closure. However, number 2, the customer adjustments that were not being documented, the $2,000, management was aware of those adjustments, but they weren't documenting. And as a former auditor, if it not documented, it didn't happen. So that's just how we operate. So they have added a procedure. The management is signing off, and so there is evidence that they reviewed every adjustment over $2,000. So I am asking to close number 2 since they did fix that immediately.
Any comments? I think we're good. That's an easy fix.
All right, that's all I had on the findings report.
Perfect. So we need a motion to move these on for closure with the board, right?
Yes, please.
Okay.
And it's fine to say, you move to close as discussed on the record.
So
But if you want to go through and say the numbers, you can. That's fine too, whatever you want to do.
can somebody tee up the motion?
Excuse
to
me, guys, I need to interrupt here for a minute. This is Audrey with
Yeah.
Ike Bailey.
Hey, Audrey.
I understand hi, I understand the closure for community development, the IT vulnerability, the body worn camera. When we get to utility billing number 2, I have a question whether or not we need internal audit to assess if that has been formally remediated. At the time of our audit, we were told it was corrected. We were finding that this was not being performed correctly. Do we need to validate that that's the case, or are we going with that the process has been remediated?
So that's at the direction of the committee up here. If you guys want to validate that we actually did fix something, there is a budget. Audrey does have a budget to go out and just make sure something's fixed.
Yeah, I mean, the fix, it's probably just a form or some kind of initials from the director that they reviewed and said, yeah, this $2,500 adjustment is approved.
Yeah, that's my guess. I mean, Public Works said they took care of it, so I believe they took care of it. But if you want to validate that, it wouldn't take Audrey very long to validate, I don't think.
Yeah, I'm not, personally, I don't see a need for that, but I don't know, does anybody else
Okay.
have burning desire to validate that? No, I
Okay.
think we're good though. That's a good point, Audrey. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
especially with a new committee member, I appreciate that, Audrey, because not everybody knows the ropes.
Okay, thanks.
Oh,
Thank
we
you.
still need our motion.
Well, yeah, I move to recommend to the Board of Supervisors closing the items discussed based on the correction of findings and recommendations included in the audit findings tracking report.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to 6D. Okay, this is discussion and possible action regarding review of agreed upon procedures suggested by Hyde Bailey for the grants and compliance audit selected for the FY23 audit work program. Audrey.
Yes, thank you, Audit Committee Chair. This one is an amazing opportunity for us to get in there and assess the decentralized process around grants. There are a lot of grant activities going on within the city, and they all should roll up into the Tyler Munis system, and there should be proper internal controls and monitoring, whether that's on the front end, the pre-award or the post-award process. So this is a very timely engagement where we'll be going in and evaluating I'll just summarize the objective, the efficiency and effectiveness of the city's financial control framework and the related internal controls over the management of the citywide grants. And we've listed out here some examples of the types of grants that the city is managing. We'll also be looking to ensure the compliance with the various grant provisions, as well as the federal, state, and local regulations. And then lastly, we'll help the city to identify opportunities to improve their grant management activities. This is one that I'm excited to undertake and one that we have completed with a couple of our other clients and several that were actively engaged in this type of audit with other clients. So this is a very timely engagement and one that's pretty much a hot topic with a lot of our clients.
With all the new ARPA money floating around and all the health grants related to COVID, I mean, this is a great time to do this. I agree.
Yeah, Audrey, how far would you guys be looking back? I mean, there were a lot of COVID stuff back in 2020, 2021. What kind of time frame are you guys focusing on?
That's an excellent question, and one in which we have weighed the decision to focus on current operations. If we spend a lot of time reflecting back, we may have issues that have already been corrected. So we're looking at the operations as they currently stand now and recognizing if there's training that maybe didn't occur a year ago but is in place now for this decentralized grants process, whether it's internal controls, whether it's a single dashboard, everyone knows the status of every grant. So we've really weighed those pros and cons of do we give or do we find issues that we uncover from a year ago that have already been corrected, or do we focus on current operations?
I would agree. It's, current's better for sure.
Yeah, I would actually love her to look at calendar year 22, because then she's hitting the fiscal year, which was June 30th, and all of our year-end adjustments, as well as, the beginning and end of a year. That would be most helpful for me, but, and if she wants to go through current, that's fine, whatever, through February. Our books are open to you, Audrey. Come out and just look at whatever you want.
Thank you.
They're very
Sure.
transparent. Other questions on the scope and procedures for the compliance audit?
So then would that be calendar year 22 and 23, or just 22? How does
Probably-
this work?
I don't know. Audrey, what are your thoughts? Calendar year 22 to current? Because we don't want to have an end date
I
on
would
the
say
audit.
January. Right, I would say January 1, 2022 to current. So if we were to look at all active grants and select our sample from that population of grants from that time frame, January 1, whether they're closed or active, and then we can try to focus most of our attention on those that are current and active now versus those that are closed. Or have been long closed, maybe closed in January. Let's look at ones that have been closed more recent.
Just to add to that, from a standpoint of the grants compliance, your external auditors are required to look at the federal grants through the June 30 timeframe. So if there were findings there, they should have reported those to you based on what they looked at.
That's true. We did not have any findings for our 22 audit. But again, single audit looks at, we're a low risk auditee, so they only look at 25% of grants, and so they don't look at everything. Like I assume we'll take a sample no matter how big or small. They're not looking at major programs versus minor programs and that kind of thing. Right? I don't want to talk out of turn.
Correct. We are looking, yes, thank you, Sherry. Correct. We are looking at the overall process and the internal control structure. And we'll be looking at various departments and the way that they handle those grants, rolling up to the grant administrator all the way through to accounting and how that's recorded and the process throughout. And we're looking at pre and post grant process, the closeouts, the expenditures, start to finish.
Okay, any other comments? Laura, go ahead.
I do have a comment, and I agree that that is a good time frame for January 1st, considering the federal fiscal year, is October. So you're looking at the tail end of those grants, for the January, February, and then you're looking at your March, April for the next fiscal year of funding. So I agree, it is a good time frame.
Okay, anything else? Looks like we're good, Audrey, Sherry. Looks
Excellent.
move forward with that. Okay, 6.
Is there an action on here? There is an action on here.
I move to direct Ide Bailey, LLP, and staff to proceed with the grant compliance audit, agreed upon procedures as discussed on the record.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you.
looks good. Moving on to 6E, discussion of the FY23 audit work program update and hotline activity. So, Audrey?
Thank you. So we have been monitoring the fraud hotline, and I admittedly have not been monitoring it as frequently as I should. The last time that I looked at that was the end of September, beginning of October, and I went in there early this week and identified, or yesterday, and identified that there were 2 reported incidents with Public Works. One has been resolved quite quickly. Thank you, Sherry, for jumping on that. And the other one is still being addressed internally. So it's on me. I did not review this more timely on a monthly basis going forward. I will. And I just wanted to point out that this is still an ongoing, one of them is still ongoing. We should have that resolved quickly though. What do you think, Sherry?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, we rarely have anything reported on the audit hotline. So, yes, we should probably check it on a monthly basis, but I can't fault Audrey because honestly, so rarely does anything get reported that I could see myself doing the same thing. So, but I really appreciate her going in and looking at it monthly from now on. So in case something does get reported, we can have much quicker response time. One incident was about an employee pay. And so I was able to get into the system and see that to me, everything looks appropriately paid. The Public Works Director does want to take a little closer look to make sure. So I'll definitely report back to you and that we both agree that she's paid correctly from the Public Works Director and myself. And then the other incident had to do with an employee not or wasting time, I guess. And so that's going to have to be more of an investigation. We're going to have to look into if there's any accuracy to it. So we can't just off the cuff today give you an answer on that. So we'll definitely let you know at the next meeting what we did. Thank you.
Okay, great. Were there any other FY23 audit work program updates, Audrey? Like, I know we spent a while talking about, I need to go back and look, refresh my memory, but we had some lengthy discussions on the audit program for this year at the last meeting.
Yes. So one of the things that Audrey's staff usually does is this is their last, what we just approved, the grant audit is their last program for this year. And then they'll do the risk assessment for next year. So my hope is that when we meet in March or our next quarterly meeting, we can discuss some items that are of concern to everybody, and we can kind of get some ideas of what we want the 2024 to look like. Hopefully, when we get that risk assessment, which is probably going to be in June or early July, then we'll have an idea of what we want to do versus what Audrey comes up with in her risk assessment, and you guys can kind of come to a consensus of what programs you want to do. That's my hope. I did like how we did it in 2 meetings this last year. I think it helped kind of get it on your mind that we need to start thinking about 24 early so we can set that program. And then it also helped if we had one in mind in March, then we could have an agreed upon procedures in June to approve so Audrey could go to work as soon as possible. Does that sound like?
Thank you, Sherry. If I can jump in there.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So yes, based on what Sherry is saying, the timing is really important as to when we kick off the risk assessment. If we were to do a preliminary risk assessment now, it would give us a point in time that we could update closer to June. So we could come to the next meeting with a preliminary risk assessment and some internal audit topics. We have to be very mindful of the budget, however. So we can either do a full risk assessment now and chew up the entire budget, or do a preliminary and do a light touch, come with some internal audit topics based on what we're finding trends in the industry within government currently, what we're seeing based on our history and experience with Carson City and the past audits that we've conducted, knowing most of the risks, if not all of the risks, are been remediated. So we can factor in and do a light touch now and bring a list. And so those options are open to you as to how we want to conduct the risk assessment process and provide you the finalized with a list of internal audits or as Sherry is saying, come earlier and provide you with the list, and we can build out the audit program so we can kick that off without any latency or pause in the progress.
Anybody comments?
I guess I would just say that I would support the preliminary light touch. I'm not sure what the right words are. And then go for the deeper dive later. That gives us a little more opportunity to think about where we might see risks and that sort of thing too.
That seems reasonable. Everybody agree? Yeah, I think we're in agreement there. Audrey seems good.
Excellent. So we'll go high level and we'll plan to have a discussion about this in the next meeting, and we'll identify, we'll have a group discussion around areas of risks that the audit committee have identified or have concerns about, would like us to include, and then we can come with the final. I don't know, at that next meeting, should we make a determination about a particular audit that would roll forward, that we would consider for the next meeting after that would be the audit program for that? What do you guys think?
Last year when we did this, we talked in March and April, and there were some specific things that we really needed to do. And so we were able to get that audit program to you guys in June, so at least they had one project they could start rolling on. So I think if we at least narrow down one or two at that meeting and then finalize it in June, what do you guys think about that? Okay.
Yeah,
Audrey, does that seem reasonable?
Going back, and that's because all these years are running together now, but what's helpful is going back and looking at what audits we've done the last, 6-7 years, and determining whether we thought they were high risk, like payables is, right? It seems like every couple of years we hit on that. Just getting the audit history so that we know what we haven't touched on in a few years.
So on the finding tracking report, the first page of that is a list of all of the audits that we have done since 2016.
Okay.
So if you look on this, you can see that we just did our AP in 2020. We just did cash handling in 2019. Cash handling is obviously a high-risk area, so I do think every 3 to 5 years makes sense with that.
Yeah, I remember we had some we had some decent findings there. Probably might be good. Well, we're getting into the next topic, but
Yeah, and it was a different treasurer as well.
okay.
So the grants audit we did back in 2018. So again, we didn't have the volume of grants we have now. So I think it's a great idea to look at that, and a different internal auditor at that time too when they did grants. So so these are all the audits.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is helpful.
Any other
I think
on
that's-
6E, or are we good? That's just a presentation. There's no.
Yeah, I think that's it. I don't think there's any motion on that. So we're moving on to,
So next is just setting the meeting.
6F, setting the date for the next audit committee meeting.
Can I recommend April 18th or April 25th? Because I'm in the middle of budget and the legislature this year. So it's purely selfish. I'm trying to move this to the end of April so the budget will be done and we'll be at the end of legislature as well.
Easter is it the 16th? No, 9th. Okay. Yeah,
It's the 9th? Okay.
yeah. I'm open, whatever works for people. Anytime after the 9th.
I'm open either date. I don't have a life.
Oh, well, thank you for being part of this. Is April 25th work?
25th work for everybody?
To be honest, I would prefer the 18th. The 23rd of April is my birthday, and I'm usually out of town for that
Okay.
week.
Okay, we'll make it happen on the 18th.
Thank you.
Sure.
And I'll make sure that somebody from my office covers. I'm gone on the 18th
Okay.
for good reasons. Yeah.
Oh,
Sweet.
wow, okay.
Thank you.
Audrey, does that date work for you?
It does, yes.
Great. She's the important auditor, so I gotta make sure she works for her too.
Okay, April 18th, same time, 1:30?
Same time, 1:30.
Okay, same time, same place.
Same time, same place.
All right. And I doubt it, but did we have any public join while we were in the meeting here?
There are no additional callers on the line at this time.
Okay, perfect, thank you. And with that, our meeting is adjourned
Thank you very much.
in 1 hour and 5 minutes.